Dry, because the next thing I have to do is go in with my eraser, because there's a little bit more work to do using the white. Does somebody have a paper towel or something I can use to clean off this pen? Or a rag? Hey, thank you. Thanks for loaning me your Gina. Okay, questions, comments? Did this work for you? And how's this drawing look?
Looks great.
Um,
It's kind of amazing because you go in with a brush and then you finish with the brush and I'm like, oh, he's done. Neat.
and I'm still not done.
Right.
When I go in with the whiteout, I'm going to pick out some details and I'm going to eliminate a few lines and brush marks in there that may not look off to you, but they look off to me right now. So I just want to pluck those out. The other thing I'm going to do with the whiteout, as you'll see, is I'm going to put a few fairly random white dots on the surface of the water, which is going to help make it more of a surface, a reflective surface. And again, it's something you can spend a lot of time with, but I've learned less is more. This is one of the things that's difficult when you're cartooning water, because there's so much going on, and part of you feels like, I gotta catch all that. And actually what you need to do is just suggest what's going on there and let the viewer's eye, because we've all looked at a moving brook or river or ocean or whatever, and the viewer will put more information there than you need to. You just need to suggest what's going on there. And little things like this, I mean, this looks wrong logically, that the break in the surface creates the serpent being sort of akimbo from where it actually is. But that's truer to how we see objects under the water, especially with this kind of angle. Thanks, man. Okay, I'm banking on the ink is dry enough. Here we go. Many a drawing has been ruined at this stage, but it looks like I'm okay. Now it's important to get up your pencil lines at some point, because I'm not really seeing what the pen lines are doing accurately until I've removed my pencil underdrawing. Okay, let's come back. Bingo. Now I like, it wasn't intentional, but I like the fact that the trees just sort of disappear up there. And remember, I was still saving my charcoal. This gives me a softer line to work with, and what I'm going to suggest at this point is that the fog is so thick that it's actually cutting off the top layer. And I'm using my finger to kind of drag those lines a little bit. Now, I'm using watercolor paper in part because though this is a brush, pen, and ink drawing, the texture of the paper has broken this charcoal crayon line up enough that that will come out in a line cut. Does that make sense to everybody? It'll break that into enough of a pattern. Some of it will drop out when it's photographed and printed, but enough of it will be there to create a softer line than I could have gotten with the pen. But just by putting that in, I suggest that this tree might go another 30 feet up, but we can't see it. It's above the fog bank at that point. All right, now I'm going to go in with my whiteout. And I may have to go back in with a pen after, depending on how much control I can maintain with this. One of the things I want to do is emphasize this feeling of reflective surfaces, and I deliberately put more black into this part of the form so that I had something for that white to come off of. I wanted it to look wet. And I'm going to do the same here and here. Okay, now The real reason I need this is I want to emphasize the scale patterns on this part of his body coming up. And the best way to do that is by going in with this white after the fact. And what I'm doing is I'm still following the curve of the body that I had set up with the first part of drawing it. And then I'm going to cut right across, and bingo. All right, now here's some of those random white reflective shapes that I mentioned I was going to lay in. All right, I think I'm going to stop because I'm almost at the point where I could screw this up. Knowing when to stop is important. Now, this white took out a little more than I wanted it to appear. I've got to make sure it really is dry before I go in. And these kind of correction pens use an alcohol base to keep them flowing. So you really want to make sure it dries first, because if you go in with a pen or a brush before it's dry completely, you can either bleed into the white, and then it's doing something you really didn't want it to do, or you can ruin the nib on a fine line marker when you go in, because it'll get, you know, it'll clog the end of the tip. So, looks like it's dry enough. So now I'm going to go in and just touch it up a little bit, right there. That's pretty good. That's about what I wanted it to do. A little bit over here. Okay, I don't think I'm going to mess with this anymore. Yes?
When you first started inking when you were younger, did you lay out your lines with the brush first?
No, I was completely scared. And I would like tentatively go in with pen, and you know, it took a while to get the facility with the brush. And part of it is, even though I was doing you know, part of what is incorrect about my drawing in this kind of environment is I'm being very careful to keep things in the camera eye. I normally would be much more physical with my drawing, you know, drawing more with my arm. I'd really be moving this around my board, but that would have unhinged our demonstration. When I was first starting out, I tended to work with pen and then go in with brush after, and it wasn't until I really got a little bit of confidence with the brush after a couple of weeks that I started really, you know, and I wasn't doing this kind of finer brush work. Like I would have done something much looser. And what I'll play with next week is a demo where I'm working with line work that's really got a lot of energy to it. And I'll deliberately put together some drawings where that'll be what's emphasized.
With the stuff like the tree, the little trick you had about not putting the volume on the tree in the background.
Yeah.
Did you pick that up just from practice, or did you look at somebody's
I
work?
saw other artists doing that, and I didn't understand what it was for until I started experimenting with it. And it is a way of creating focal depth. You know, this flattens the form, and it implies, as in a photograph, that the sharper focus is in this part of the image, and that somehow is out of focus or less focused. It's all a trick of the eye, but it works. And choosing where you're going to render forms fully and where you're going to back off and just lay them in as patterns is part of what took me years to really sort out. And it was just through trial and error a lot of it. Okay, that's today's demo. Thanks for coming. We'll do it again next week.
Woo!